would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California and member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to it, everyone. I'm pretty sure you all know what today is. Tuesday, November 8th, 2016, Election Day. No matter who you're voting for, please take the time to do it. A lot of folks are going to make the argument that no matter how this comes out, we're all screwed. And I suppose there's an argument to be made for that. We'll just have to push through and see how it goes. Who knows? Maybe wonderful things will happen. And because we can't absolutely count on that, I will do all I can to at least help you get great information relating to real estate and move forward with that. If you'd like to get in contact with me, the best way is to head over to the website at therebelbroker.com. If you'd like to get into the drawing for the $50 Amazon gift card, just click the big red button at the top of the page titled Take the Survey to Support the Show. And you will be added to the list of folks who could potentially win the $50 gift card for Amazon. And that's a drawing that we've done now 2 months in a row. We did it in October, the beginning of October, beginning of November. We'll do it again the beginning of December. You just use the same email address both times you're asked and answer a few questions on the demographic survey, and you are all set. So in addition to getting yourself a chance to win some money, you're also helping to support the show. So thank you very much for taking time out to do that. We're kind of at that time of year when people are thinking about potentially selling their home, right? We're reaching the end of 2016. Spring of 2017 is when folks start really getting in the mood. Statistically, at least in my area, May is the right month. That shifts a little bit. Desirability numbers tend to shift a little bit in some smaller areas. So make sure to check with your real estate professional to make sure that's actually the way it works in your area. Zillow will give you a number, but I find frequently that's a little bit more general. You'll also find that there's a little variation in terms of the style of home. So you'll want to have someone who's going to do these numbers for you and not just run the numbers on homes, but run the numbers on homes like yours. For instance, last year I found that 2-bedroom homes were actually selling for higher prices a month earlier than 3 bedrooms. So that's when I listed, and we did really well. It didn't end up selling in that month, but we actually did really well on that particular property. So keep that in mind. You want to try and be as specific as you can, because oftentimes you'll find that those numbers indicate a better strategy is suggested by the numbers. One of the things that's also good is to think early, plan early. Don't just 1 minute decide, I want to go ahead and put my house on the market and then just do it. It's always a good idea to prepare a little bit. And the good folks over at U.S. News and World Reports have put out an article, Planning to Put Your Home on the Market This Spring, How to Prepare Now. So I thought it would be good for us to run down their list of suggestions and maybe add a little commentary as I go to spice it up a little bit. Now, I'm a big believer in preparing for a lot of folks go through life living in their home, and it's beautiful. I've had some folks who've contacted me about potentially listing their home, and I go in and I meet with them, and their place is show ready right there. That's not typical. Even if you believe your home is show ready, you need to invite in a professional who's going to be honest with you and let you know what changes you may need to make in order to make it as marketable to the largest number of people as possible. So just kind of keep that in mind. A lot of the things that you're going to get suggested as someone might suggest as a result of a staging review of your property might rub you the wrong way. You may have decorated in ways that may have been fantastic for you and would appeal to folks of a similar mindset as you, but you want to appeal to a broader audience than that. So try to think of it in those terms. Don't think of it in the terms of what would you buy, because you're not trying to buy this house, you're trying to sell it. So just keep that in mind as you go through this process. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump in. There's a little bit here in the narrative before they get into some of the just bullet points here that I thought were worth sharing. A lot of sellers have a long way to go on their home, but they're just never going to get it done in time. They don't have the wherewithal and the resources, so you've got to be careful what you recommend, says Joffrey Green, a real estate agent and owner of the Green Team Home Selling Team System in Warwick, New York. One suggestion they make here is you'll need to perform basic maintenance to keep appliances and systems such as plumbing fixtures and air conditioning running smoothly. Complete repairs you've been putting off and clear all the clutter that's built up over the years, not to mention actually make your home attractive to potential buyers. It's probably best to get started now. Now, some of you may realize that. You may be able to take a sort of third-party view of your home and see it for what it is. Maybe perfect for your lifestyle, but maybe not the perfect way to show it to folks who want to buy it and make it part of their life. Some examples before we get into these specific points. Let me give you kind of some examples from past homes that I've gone and viewed. Rooms that have entire bedrooms that have been converted into closets. You'd be surprised how many folks have done this, where literally a bedroom that has a closet is in itself a closet. It's someone has brought in tons of those wardrobes on wheels, or maybe bought tons of really fancy wardrobes, and now it's full of nothing but shoes and clothes, and nothing shows a bedroom more poorly. The only exception might be just floor-to-ceiling boxes stacked up to where you can barely even open the door, which I've also seen. But no one's going to get any idea of the usefulness of that room with it being stocked as a closet. If you have a room that's being used as a closet, every single thing in that room should be packed and carted away. In situations like that, my suggestion is usually to actually get a rental unit, a storage unit, and start carting that stuff away. Because while that might be great for you, you need to put everything away that's not absolutely vital. So, and one thing that's not going to be in here in terms of minimizing, it's actually kind of corollary to one of the points they're going to make here. But anything that's not season appropriate, for instance, let's say you're listing in springtime. Okay, great. So everything in your garage that relates to Christmas ornaments, to Halloween decorations, to Thanksgiving decorations, all of those things should be packed up and gone. It's one of those things where less clutter is better. If you are in springtime, depending on what the weather is like in your area, your goal is to have that property sold in the average in your region or faster, right? So if you're selling it then, you're pretty much not going to be jumping right back into winter again. So here, it starts to get warm as we move into the new year. I realize it's still deep in the heart of winter in March and April in a lot of places. Around here, not so much. It tends to be shorts weather. So pack all that stuff up and get rid of it. All right, let's go ahead and jump into their list. I'm sure we'll be able to segue into some other things here as we go. Let's see. Take exterior photos. I think that this is an important one, but you need to have it be flexible. Your real estate agent is going to be able to take good interior photos. Typically, they're either going to hire someone to come in and do it, or they're going to do it themselves. And most likely, they're going to come in with a higher quality camera with good lenses that are going to do a good job for you. By the way, if your real estate agent comes in saying they're going to take the pictures of your home with their phone, tell them to please not. The photos are the very first impression that your property is going to make online, and we've talked about that being the very first hurdle that needs to be overcome in terms of getting people to want to see your house rather than the other homes that they're finding. Don't let them skimp on the photos. If there's anything that needs to be done well, or at the very minimum as attractively as they can be done, it's the photos. And taking them with your phone, it's just shooting yourself in the foot. So don't let anybody do that. Now, right now we're in the heart of winter, so who knows what your place looks like. with all of your, I would suggest take photos whenever it's a really beautiful day out. If you've got a day where there's lots of snow and it's decorated nicely for Christmas or whatever, go ahead and take a photo. But you're going to want to take exterior photos when it looks the best possible. Now, odds are, depending on where you are in the country, and again, in this part of the country, the closer you get to summer, once you've gotten past January, with each passing month, it gets nicer. We don't get snow. It'll rain a little bit. But as I mentioned, typically around March and April, we're pretty comfortable. So normally, if you want to take a really good photo of the exterior of your house, you simply got to wait for the sun to be up, kind of over your shoulder behind you. And this may mean taking the front yard photos and backyard photos at two different times. And of course, this also assumes that you have a good quality camera to do that yourself. Again, remember, these photos need to be good. They need to be attractive and really accentuate the best qualities of your property. Okay. Pare back your garden is their second suggestion here. No one can deny curb appeal is important, and you can even do some maintenance now to avoid overhauling your garden in spring. It's kind of easy enough to trim things back and take care of things, so when they do start growing in the spring, they're not out of control. A lower maintenance garden will also be more attractive to younger first-time buyers. The younger buyers today want nothing to do with gardening for the most part. I'm constantly encouraging clients to thin out their gardens. So if you do have that sort of overgrown situation that screams, I need maintenance a lot, you're probably going to want to work now to overcome that and simplify your front garden. It's going to be one of those situations where it's not a good idea to eliminate everything, but paring down, minimizing. You want, and I completely agree with their suggestion that low maintenance is typically preferable over very elaborate gardening that clearly needs an awful lot of maintenance. As an example, I had a listing a couple of years ago where the landscaping requirements for the property were amazingly involved, to the point where if you didn't continue to employ the landscaper who was working for my owner, the odds were some stuff on your lot was going to die. So that was a big deal. And I, frankly, in my, oh God, how long has it been? I've been doing this since the late 80s. I can't remember a more complicated interaction and conversation about what it was going to take for the new owners to deal with the landscaping. In fact, I think within 3 or 4 months of the new buyers buying, they decided not to employ the existing landscaping guy, and this gigantic willow tree in the front yard died, which was just horrible because it was beautiful, but it was nuts. So you've got to sort of walk that line between the beauty that it brings versus the effort that it's going to take. Now, in that case, I think the amount of effort that lot was going to take to maintain turned some folks off, but luckily it was so amazingly good looking. I think that overcame a lot of that and allowed folks to think that they could manage it. And unfortunately, clearly the folks who bought it couldn't. But it was amazing while it lasted. Let's see. Relieve the load in your master closet. This is absolutely a good one, and I don't think you should limit it to your master closet. Too frequently, I see the typical bedroom, right? Then, well, let's not talk about the master bedroom for a second. Let's start with one of the other bedrooms. Normally, what we're talking about are a pair of sliding doors for that wide closet with the long hanging rod going across the whole thing. And when those things are packed bottom to top with stuff, it simply makes the space look not as usable. A filled space implies that it lacks capacity to handle what you need it for. So normally what I like to see in terms of suggestions I make is to go to all of your closets, and any of the things that you do not plan to use or need during the time period that you're expecting to be trying to sell your home should be packed up and put away. That would include really big winter coats, your skiing stuff, skis, snowboards, whatever. All of that stuff should not be there. And normally I like to suggest that you want to get the shelves right above the hanging clothes as empty as possible, with only one layer of boxes if You have to have stuff up there. Don't have stuff stacked box on top of box on top of box. It needs to more accurately reflect that it's usable space by having space there that people can see it's not all fully packed to the gills. Now, that may seem like a small thing, but when people casually open up those closets, when things are pushing up against that sliding door for the garage or for the closet, and just see tons of stuff, the perception isn't, oh, wow, this is a spacious closet. The perception is, oh, wow, this thing is just packed to the gills. And that's the impression they leave with, not with plenty of room in this closet, but wow, this closet's absolutely full. So you want to give that idea that there's still plenty of room there for what a normal person's going to be putting into a closet. And I normally like to also suggest that you pare down whatever's hanging on the rods, pare it down to the point so there's at least 25% of the hanging space is untaken, so that it absolutely is showing the open space within the closet. Master closets are particularly important for this one. I'm going through this right now. So for those of you who are relatively new, I'm in the process of trying to decide what I'm going to do with my property. Originally, I was going to go ahead and hold on to it. I had arranged a loan where I could do that and I could rent it. And then I started having the cash flow argument with myself where I could potentially sell this property and buy 2 other properties, live in one, rent the other, or buy one property and have amazingly good cash flow because I'd financed so little of the property that I could then save enough money within 18 months to 24 months to purchase another income property. So I'm kind of in a position where I'm doing this now. I'm paring out my stuff. I've already done my master closet, and I probably packed away 60% of what was hanging up in that closet, got rid of tons of boxes that were stacked one on top of the other. And now it looks like this closet looks like it's got more than enough room for just about anybody. And it conveys that impression. So unfortunately, my sons are occupying the other rooms, and getting stuff out of their closets is proving less easy. So definitely closets are one thing that you can spend some time on, and it makes your packing process easier. You're kind of getting a head start on things you have to do anyway. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next point from this news item from U.S. News and World Reports, but right here we'll take a quick break. We'll be back in just a minute, so don't go away. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right. Aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Welcome back, everyone. We're just having a chat about what U.S. News and World Reports says you should be planning on doing if you're thinking about selling your home this spring. And I think it's a good time to start this conversation. These are things you can start easing into. I know I'm in that mode as well. And I'll tell you, a couple of weekends have gone by here where I had slated time to do an awful lot of that kind of stuff, sort of thinning out the house, putting a few things into storage, which hasn't happened yet. So I'm already a little bit behind on what my goals were for this. But they're definitely still on that list, and I will absolutely get to them. Next on the list here from U.S. News and World Reports is freshen up the kitchen. We've talked about this one before. In fact, I did a show about a month and a half ago on specific things you can do to refresh that kitchen and make it look better, whether it was refacing the cabinets, painting the cabinets, new hardware, new countertops, those types of things. All things that should be calculated to increase the property value of your home by more than it costs you to do it. And just about all the suggestions we made during that show would absolutely satisfy that. So go back, do a quick search on some older shows, and you should be able to track it down. I'll try to include a link to that show in the show notes for today's show at therebelbroker.com, so feel free to check that out. The suggestion they give here, and this is critical stuff, the make or break rooms in your house in terms of absolutely being number one considerations on the part of buyers are kitchens and master bathrooms, which are why those are the two rooms on my number one potential list for changes. I've already started some DIY stuff in my kitchen. I've sort of come down with the idea that ultimately I'm going to have to replace those cabinets if I want to get my home sold for the amount of money I want in the time frame I want, and in a way that it costs me less than what it'll make me to do the work that I'm going to do in the kitchen. Let's see. What they suggest here is, since you're planning to sell in just a few months, it's best to focus on projects that will make the biggest difference in a home sale, which obviously would include your kitchen. Quote, it may not hurt to reface the cabinets and put in a quartz countertop or something that is fresher looking. As a more cost-conscious option, Green says sprucing up your existing cabinets can make a big difference. There's a lot of really good painting techniques for cabinetry these days. What's interesting is a quick run to places like Lowe's or Home Depot. While I'm not a big fan of doing their cabinets, in dealing with past clients, in shopping for myself, I actually find that you can go to a cabinet guy who's going to give you great cabinets for your kitchen, and you're going to get higher quality for a lower price than you even get from Home Depot. And remember, you get what you pay for with that low-end Home Depot stuff, and it just looks crappy. It doesn't feel solid. It doesn't look solid. It has all the earmarks of profoundly cheaply made stuff. And when you start getting into the more expensive varieties of shelves and cabinets that are sold at Home Depot, you've kind of crossed in a line where you're paying too much. So I would suggest that you consult with local cabinet guys. You can actually consult with Yelp. I've have investors who have found some of their best cabinet people just through Yelp, and they'll come in, they'll measure, they'll give you an idea of what it'll cost to provide the cabinets. You can have them bid to do the whole job, or you can bid it where you do the demolition work and then you do the install, and save yourself some money that way. But those are definitely ways I would look into the possibility of upgrading your kitchen if that's what you've decided to do. And as I mentioned, your kitchen and your master bath should be the very first places you're considering remodeling or doing any substantial work before you do any place else. Next, start the depersonalization process. Now, I'm a big believer in this one, and frequently you'll get a little pushback from sellers because they feel like that folks want to buy a home that has that home feeling, and some of those personal items make it feel more homey. And what I'll usually say is the reason why it makes it feel homey for you is these are things that have relevance to your life. They're things that you remember from experiences that you've had. They're family members. So no one else can really relate to that other than recognizing that these are obviously cherished home things that are part of someone else's life, so they actually feel like they're intruding on someone else's very personal space. So it actually can work against you. So now that's one reason. However, there's another reason that I like to do this, and it's not because I've ever experienced a problem. It's just really an overabundance of caution. I like for my clients to remove all family photos, particularly if you have children in the house, any photos that would indicate where they go to school, that they're a cheerleader or a football player, anything else, anything that would reveal personal trackable stuff about anyone who lives in your home should not be hanging on your walls. It should all be packed away. And of course, that extends into the other things that we've talked about, the sports memorabilia, the porcelain figurines, the velveteen posters of Elvis, the Tinkerbell collection, all of that stuff is fantastic. I don't think anyone in the world would disagree that Tinkerbell is not awesome, but I think that also, since you want to appeal to the largest number of folks, that you should pack all of that stuff up. And the benefit of packing all of that stuff up is if you're like a client I had back in 1997, that means you're also going to be able to move out 15 display cases that are crowding your living room and family room to display all of your Tinkerbell memorabilia. Yes, that's what I said, 15 display cases. And amazing how big a house feels once you've pulled 15 display cases out of it and are no longer displaying every single piece of anything that ever had Tinkerbell on it. So yeah, there's that. And as you move these things out, you're going to be stunned. And you know what's really nuts? This is, and I don't know if I mentioned this in the show when I was doing it, but my parents were looking to move, so I was kind of helping them prepare. And even though my father is also a real estate agent, he's not a broker, but he's an agent. And no, I didn't go into the business because of him. I was actually an agent, I think, 10 years ahead of him. But I was giving him suggestions on what to do. And so some family members and I went over there and we did a quick staging and we said, this should go, this should go, this should go. And of course, unlike my other clients where I could then simply walk out the door and leave them with the chore of doing that, I ended up having the chore of removing everything that I told them to remove. They very much fought me on a lot of the things. We ended up putting it into storage. And what was funny was they ended up loving the extra space once we had pulled all that stuff out. So only a less than half of the items that we took out ended up getting moved back in because my parents had decided how much they ended up staying because the place felt bigger and they were able to live more happily there. And ultimately, they're actually right now expanding on the place, but it really got them thinking in that way. And I think overall, it actually ended up helping them out. Okay. So what you're basically looking to do here is to depersonalize the space. And you're not depersonalizing it to make it antiseptic. Don't think that it's going to feel too cold or too distant or too unapproachable. What it's going to be is a blank canvas for folks who are going to be able to come in and imagine their own stuff there, right? One thing that's great is when I show a house to someone and the people who are looking to buy feel comfortable enough to let their child walk around a little bit. If there's a ton of personal stuff, they're often not willing to do that. They want to be careful that their child doesn't touch anything. And, we're always careful and respectful, but it's a level of comfort and it's hard to explain, but, or maybe it's not. When a person who's viewing your home feels comfortable to put down their child and let them walk on their own, that is an indication to me that they are already, I don't know what you'd call it, imprinting on the house or sort of imagining themselves in the house. And if I go through and I show a home to a buyer and they never put their child down, I tend to notice those are the homes that have tons of personal stuff up in the house. So you haven't reached that level of comfort. And I think that's a critical point. And that you need, as a seller, you want to encourage that in folks who are looking in your home. You want to make them feel like this is a place they could see themselves. Okay, make your to-do list obvious. You need to sit down, create a list. Already lost track of everything you need to do before putting your home on the market. Keep a visual to-do list throughout the home, a piece of blue painter's tape on anything that needs work, whether it's a wall that needs new paint, scuffed molding, or a switch plate that needs replacing. The tape serves as a constant reminder. Complete the marked tasks when you can in the months leading up to spring, so when people walk through, it's pristine. So if you're like me, you may not have seen every nook and cranny of your kids' rooms, for instance, and I've just been going through, and so I look at every electrical outlet. I looked at every switch. Everything gets looked at, and if there's any black marks on those plugs that indicate there might have been a short, that plug is going to get replaced. Are there any cracked face plates on any plugs? That face plate's going to get replaced. So go through and do that. Just make sure you're consistent. Don't start off buying beige face plates and then change over to buying white face plates. That just looks funky. And whether people notice it or not, they do subconsciously. At least I think they notice it subconsciously. So keep that in mind. Now, here's another thing I want to mention because it is probably the most ignored part of preparing your home to get sold. The garage. I find more and more a lot of interest on the part of buyers on what can I do with the garage. Over the years, my philosophy on this has kind of evolved, and I don't know if it's because my perceptions of what buyers are looking at has evolved, or or things really have evolved. My suggestion has always been, if you have to store stuff in your garage, at least store it away from the walls. Now, the reason for that is actually more about inspections. You want to make sure that any inspector who comes in is going to be able to get access to the walls of the garage, or they're going to put a notation in their inspection that they couldn't do an inspection because it was blocked by stuff. You don't want that. You want them to be able to get over there and take a look. My suggestion is it is still worth it to you from a money standpoint to pay whatever it's going to cost you to go and put your junk in a storage facility. A super crowded garage is not a benefit to you. If you have a great 2-car garage with plenty of extra space for a little bit of a workshop on either one of the two sides, but everything's clogged up with junk, that's not good. If you've got great cabinets that are built in to your kitchen or to your garage, but the doors don't close because all the junk that's in them, that's not good either. And I find myself in that mode. I have a what I consider to be a great garage with room on either side of the garage to have like a little workbench. But because of all the stuff I've got in there right now, it makes it very difficult. I can still park the car in there, and I have a motorcycle in there, but there's other miscellaneous junk that just needs to go. That isn't stuff that gets used, so it needs to go away. Get it out of there. In fact, the more pristine, the more clean, the more uncluttered that your garage can be, the more you're going to entice somebody in that buying group, whether it's the husband or the wife or the single mom or the single woman who wants to buy the house. When they see that they've got this extra space that has a utility to it, they're giving that home properties in their head that other homes that they've seen with that cluttered garage, they're just not giving it to. They're seeing it more than just a place to stick the car or stack boxes. They're seeing it as a place that has a utility, that has a thing you can do in it. And in the case of my garage, that could be woodworking or hobbies, whatever. I've got kind of a couple of things set up down there. But again, those surfaces are all covered in boxes. So no one really gets to see that context, right? Sometimes it's about you defining the context of an area to tickle a part of a buyer's brain that they may not even realize is something they want to have tickled. So just keep that in mind. If you've got areas that are just absolutely bogged down with stuff, get rid of the stuff. Give the buyer the opportunity to overlay their most optimistic view of what they could do with that space, instead of identifying it as the drop point for junk that you've kind of defined it to be with the stuff that you've left there. Okay, so we went off list a little bit. The garage suggestion was just straight Rebel Broker magic. A couple of little things we drabbled in there. I hope that that's useful for you as someone who might potentially be looking to get that home sold in the springtime, and absolutely figure out what the perfect timing is for you. We've got enough time now that you can time your approach to the market perfectly so that you're going to walk away with the best terms, the best conditions, the best price, and the shortest time on market, and achieve all of your goals. So absolutely start planning now. Take a look at Google Calendar. And if you want to make goals out of the different things to do to your property, do that. It's a great tool for doing that, something I use in my day-to-day life, and I think would benefit anybody out there who's trying to get things completed. All right, folks. I absolutely appreciate you using your valuable time to listen to me every day. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you all next time. Good luck at the polls.